On this episode of the Star Trek Universe podcast, we are talking about the Season 2 finale of Star Trek Discovery. Right after this.
Welcome to the Star Trek Universe podcast. My name is Matthew Carroll.
I'm David C. Robertson.
What's happening, Dave?
Oh, man. I had a kind of a really busy Easter.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened. And,
yeah, I saw you posting lots of pictures.
Yeah.
Lots of
I've still got one more.
Egg nipples and egg eyes. I don't know. Yeah,
I've got one more. Egg ears. And
Ooh.
I fell asleep while posting it. So, it's not up yet.
No good, man.
I know. Before we get into this week's episode, I do want to thank one of our listeners, Jason Smith. Jason Smith is a listener for DC on Screen and subsequently for this show. And, decided to do a little remodeling. Needed to get rid of a bunch of Star Trek stuff and sent me a big box of Star Trek stuff, like graphic novels and whatnot.
Yeah, man, that's freaking awesome.
It was really cool. And, those things are around my house now.
That's so awesome.
It is. So thank you very much, Jason. It's
and
really amazing.
I'm just a little offended. He obviously likes you better.
Well, you know.
Just teasing. It was mostly all Star Trek stuff?
Yeah, pretty much.
So he had a purge. Did he explain? Was it Star Trek specific? Did he just has he given up on the trek?
Oh no. A few days later, he was messaging me about the finale.
Oh, okay, good.
No, he's taken up a new passion. Sword fighting, and he's collecting a lot of swords now.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's rad. Well, thank you for sending that over, man. That's really rad.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah, over the years, we've had a few people send stuff like that in to the MCU cast, and it's just awesome. It's like, Jeffrey James one time sent us a Iron Man that he built out of, I don't know if it was built out of metal. I don't know. It was really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've had a few people.
He sent it to us when we were, running behind. We hadn't posted an episode in 3 or 4 weeks. He sent us a thing that said Superior Iron Man will destroy Alabama if you don't start posting episodes soon. Or something like that.
That's cute.
Yeah, it was nice. So that's over here now. Anyway, let's dive into the episode and talk about some Star Trek. The finale, man. We're done with season 2 of Discovery.
That's crazy.
How has it left you feeling? Just do you feel like there's a hole in your life?
No, I don't feel like a hole is there.
I think I kind of do. And that's not even, I honestly, the more I rewatch these episodes and I rewatched this one a few times,
mm-hmm.
I think I like them less and less, but I miss the excitement of hoping it's a great Star Trek episode. I find myself missing that there's going to be another one this week because they have had a few great episodes and, and even the sort of bad ones have been, enjoyable anyway. And I don't know. I just miss having new Star Trek. I'm excited that they're going to be having more over the next, few years.
Right. I don't know. I have not felt the excitement of new Star Trek since probably, not the same way I have, but not in the same way since Deep Space Nine. That was it was the perfect age for us. We were that ran until 1999. Is that right? So
I think that sounds right.
It was the perfect age for us. It was the perfect series for us at that time. And since that time, I've gotten a little older, gotten a little more jaded. And, plus DS9 was really pushing forward with that whole hey, we're doing serialized storytelling. And you're like, what? So
yeah, it's a whole different kind of show. And this obviously is even more in that direction. And I'm,
Well, I said all that to say it might be a little unfair for every subsequent Star Trek series because I'm always like looking for that feeling.
right. I can't say that I recaptured that, being 17 again and watching Star Trek, but I definitely felt excitement, and like I think it sends me back when I'm waiting for a new Star Trek episode to drop, and then one drops and I sit down to watch it. It definitely sends me back to that 17-year-old feeling. And if I'm being honest, it's more like the 15-year-old feeling. I think I started kind of falling off the last couple seasons of DS9. Not completely. I loved the show, but I just started getting more going on in my life at that age and started like going out more and doing things and playing in a band and all that kind of stuff. And I started like, catching up with 2 or 3 episodes at a time on VHS tape instead of, I think it probably borrowed from you.
Maybe.
You would often help me catch up with shows I missed because you were vigilant about taping everything. Little did you know that everything would be available all the time in just a few years.
I like to think I was ahead of the curve.
I like to think I was ahead of the curve and not just wasting all my time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get why you would want to believe that. Let's get into the episode. Throw us that summary to us.
The CBS All Access summary. The USS Discovery battles against Control in a fight not only for their lives, but for the future. With a little help from some unexpected friends. Sorry. Spock and Burnham discern vital new connections between the red signals, while Burnham faces one of life's harshest truths. The right decisions are often the hardest to make.
I want to talk. First, I'm going to say some positive things to get them out of the way because not to get them out of the way, to put them put them up top.
That was brutal.
Yeah. I really, the visuals in this episode are amazing.
The visuals. Yeah.
They're beautiful.
I was like, good Lord.
They're beautiful. They're not what I always come to Star Trek for, but they're gorgeous. And I don't fault the show for doing that. It's enjoyable. I did, but even in those, like the amazing battle sequences, I found myself thinking, this just feels like chaos. It's really hard to track the action. You know what I mean? The only scene that really felt, like the action was being earned was the scene where Burnham is in the suit flying through the madness. Like that was pretty cool. With all the ships flanking her, like that was really, really cool. And I felt like I knew what was going on. But most of the time it just felt like lasers shooting in every direction. And the style of battle, I mean, old Star Trek is submarine battles. This felt like fighter battles, but not even that. They did something new here. And I don't want to fault them for doing something new, but it's weird, the idea that just like, oh, we have more ships, so we're obviously going to win this battle.
Well, they've outfitted their like drone ships or their...
Yes. All of their shuttles and all their drones with weaponry, which, let me just point out how crazy that is. Pike left the ship for a few months. He came back, and number one took it upon herself to arm all of the shuttles, which is not a thing, at least not to that level, that we've done in the past. It just seems like a really weird militaristic move from number one. Like we didn't talk about it. That was actually in the last episode, and I didn't dawn on me till this episode that like they didn't know they were going for a big battle. Like they got called in and they showed up. Like, often in Starfleet, the whole idea is not to win things militarily. Like, that's not the goal.
Right.
This could have just as easily been resolved through some sort of conversation with the Red Angel or something, or Control. It's Star Trek. Like, it was a really weird move for number one to just arm everything.
What was it? Well, I thought it was Discovery's drones or whatever.
They start arming Discovery's drones after Pike says to, and he's like, we need to outfit every shuttle and every drone with, with weaponry. And number 1 says, don't worry, I've already outfitted all the shuttles with this, and this. And she names all these military upgrades she did to the shuttlecrafts. And I was just like, it didn't dawn on me at the time, but that is a crazy thing for a, second in command to do while the captain's away.
A little bit.
It makes sense. It's wonderful for the plot of this episode.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense in the universe, though.
Yeah, it's a little weird. I don't remember why they would have done that.
I don't think they said a reason. There's an obvious reason they want it now, because all the Section 31 ships are closing in on them. It makes sense why they would need it now. It doesn't make sense why she did it while the captain was away. Because this was not necessarily heading toward a huge battle scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, I've got a lot of little nitpicks like that, and I hate to do it, but I just there's so many little things in this episode that are just come on, why? Why? And then even things they did right, in this episode, they mention how they can't beam over to Discovery because they'd have to lower their shields and they'd have to lower their shields and da-da-da-da. They have that discussion. That was correct. Why didn't they talk about beaming technology when they were at that Section 31 base a couple episodes ago? They obviously know the rules of beaming.
Yeah. And
it pissed me off that they paid attention to it here because they ignored it 3 episodes ago. Highlighted that fact.
Uh-huh.
And another thing they mentioned, you just mentioned, in the summary, how Spock and Burnham learn new things about the way they're going to have to use the time travel.
Yeah.
Make new connections, I think it said in the summary. She says, I feel like I'm just going to shit on this episode for a while, and I don't want to. Bail me out, Dave. Okay, I'm going to get through this one, and then we'll talk about something else.
No, go for it.
And she realizes that she has to set the signals now before she goes to the future. And she says, I just assumed I was going to depart from somewhere in the future to set the signals. But the whole thing is it's a one-way trip, and once they go to the future, they can't come back. So how is she supposed to go set the signals? Why did she think that was even possible? Why wasn't going back already part of the plan? It had to be, because once they take the trip to the future and open a portal big enough for Discovery to go through, they burn out the crystals. This should have been part of the plan, but they made it not part of the plan just so they could have a tearful goodbye with Spock and her, an unexpected tearful goodbye. Obviously, we expected it, but for them not to expect that, and for it to be dramatic when she realizes she has to go set the signal. But any logical look at the scenario, you had to set the signals before you burn out the time crystal. Uh-huh. I feel like such a nerd right now, how passionately I am mad at that.
Yeah, dude, I was confused about that as well, because when she makes that realization, I was like, I thought we knew that already. When they realized,
they should have.
When they realized, oh, well, she's the one that did the signals. I thought they were already oh, okay, yeah, that's what has to happen. And then she has the realization, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense. And, listeners of the show will know I'm, particularly dense.
Listeners of this show will know I'm particularly dense. And just some other things, the other things they did that just were not good in this episode. The very first scene, the main cast members are running around engineering, and it's a really beautiful shot with gorgeous camera movements. The main cast is running around the ship, running around engineering, taking jobs from less competent ensigns. And every one of them does it. They're like, no, hand me that. I'm going to do this because you're doing it wrong. No, the couplers have to go here. And it's like... Michael
grabs the thing and says, get off the line. And he was like, oh.
Yeah. The whole point of Starfleet is that they're all supposed to be kind of good at their jobs.
Yes, but every Star Trek show has done that, though. Every one of them.
Right. I'm totally with you. I'm not mad at the idea of an incompetent ensign. You know me. I don't want all of our crewmen to be perfect. They had to create all these straw men ensigns and just gullible people just to make the main cast feel good about, like for us to feel good about the main cast. It just made me feel shitty about the writers. Like, do you not trust that we believe these people are good at their jobs? It just felt weird and out of place and kind of like, let's shit on the rest of the Federation, the rest of Starfleet, like all the underlings, just to make our main cast look better. I don't know. It just felt silly. Or why did you have them? If you knew, it just, having 4 or 5 ensigns in a row that are incompetent and have to be taken, just felt weird. I've never seen that. I've definitely seen people make mistakes on the ship and go, you need to go back to whatever remedial training or something. You know, that's happened on Starfleet, on Star Trek before, but not like in rapid succession. It just felt silly and, I don't know, kind of disrespectful to Starfleet. Like,
I don't know. You know, I'm just thinking of it in terms of like, yeah, we've seen that. We've seen, you know, anytime they need which is one of the problems I've always had with the whole like Roddenberry post TOS Roddenberry evolved human being idea, because like in the original series, every time they needed a guy to be wrong so Kirk can virtue signal or something,
right,
you know, like, it's like, suddenly we have a guy on the bridge who's like a completely racist dick.
Yeah. Right. Which is fine. And like, it just felt weird to have them all in succession. And honestly, looking back at that feels like lazy writing too. Like, I'm not going to letting original series get away with it, and say it's not lazy writing. It's lazy writing to like build up a straw man in general, but to do it 4 times in a row. And I do give original series a lot more passes because it was just like they didn't know what they were building. It's a whole new thing. I just don't know.
Well, see, most of the time in the original series when they did it though, like there was a good reason. Like the racist dick that I'm thinking of from Balance of Terror, his grandfather was in, I think it was his grandfather was in the Earth Romulan Wars. So when they, for the first time ever, see the Romulans and they look just like the Vulcans, the dude has like, a fair amount of prejudice and paranoia about Mr. Spock. Like, yeah, he's been a spy this whole time. What the hell? So yeah, there's a build up. There's a reason.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, this isn't racism. This is just incompetence, but it's like, last episode, they were talking about how important it was to build this suit correctly and quickly. Why would you put people on it that you don't feel confident in? And how do you have not enough competent people to put on the most important project on the ship for that few hours or whatever? It just felt stupid. I don't know. It just felt stupid, and the reason was unnecessary. Like, the problems with this show have nothing to do with me not thinking that the main cast is exceptional.
Right.
Like, they feel exceptional. Tilly feels exceptional. Burnham feels exceptional. Saru feels exceptional. They all feel great. Stamets, like all of them feel very exceptional. Why was that scene necessary? It just felt silly. Anyway, that's another small,
I agree to some degree. Yeah.
Point I'm punching at. I don't know.
It's okay. I didn't, that's not a problem I wrote down. So I'm glad to hear, something else.
Another big one I had at Kaminar, she goes back, and she's supposed to light the signal. That's her job. She's going back to light the signals. But at Kaminar, the signals happen before Discovery gets there. They get there, and then the Red Angel appears, and the Red Angel shuts down all the power to those weird devices that are about to kill all the Kelpians. That's how that episode happened. But because they wanted another shot of Burnham looking back on past events, they put her in the Red Angel suit. When the Red Angel appears to Saru and Sarana, she wasn't there. That's the Red Angel. The Red Angel is not the same as the signals. Why did
the Red Angel was making the signals?
No.
I think that was her.
No. The Red Angel was a person going back and changing events. Burnham is the one setting the signals. So that should have been Burnham's mom in the suit looking down on Saru and Sarana.
No. I think there were certain events that were her mother, and then there were other events that were her. So you're correct in the fact that she had to like set the signals, but they also said that certain times, like when she saved herself, whatever that Hiawatha.
Yeah, I guess that's true. That was
her,
too.
And she knew to go and save Saru and Sarana.
But that's another question I have is how did she even do that? Like she barely knows how to use the suit. She went back.
Well, that's just calling into question the entire premise, which I agree with.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, like she knows how to because she basically watched a YouTube video of her mom doing it.
Well, no, I don't mean that. Like the whole thing with her going back to Kaminar, the Red Angel shows up on Kaminar and shuts down all those power cubes that are about to destroy all of the Kelpians. Like that's what she does when she shows up there. But Burnham's just along for the ride. Does the suit just automatically send out some sort of signal that just happens to disrupt the Ba'ul's weapon systems? Like I have no idea why the Kelpians are saved there, you know? If that's not her mom. I thought it was her mom doing it. Like her mom has other knowledge, maybe planned to go back and had some sort of device to shut down the Ba'ul's weapon systems. But her being in that suit makes no sense to me.
It could be a paradox situation. Like they remember what the sensor reading said when she knows what the sensor reading said when everything went down. So she knows what kind of frequency to do or something.
Yeah, that's absolutely possible. But, and so now that you mention it though, I do have a problem now that her saving herself on that planet too. Like that whole thing, she's supposed to be setting the signals. According to everything I understood about the season, her mom has been saving her life all this time. Her mom is the one who went and saving others' lives. The Kelpians, her mom is the one that went back in time and rescued that planet full of people and brought them forward. Her mom is the one doing those things. And then she's the one who is supposed to set the signals. Like that's the whole thing. That's what's left to do. That's what she programs her suit to do. But then they have her appear in multiple places, which I didn't even realize it at the time. Because it was cool. I was like, oh, that is cool that was her looking onto herself as the Red Angel. But the whole point is it shouldn't have been. That should have been her mom. I don't know. That's how I took it anyway. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just seemed like they were like inserting her into the suit to make it look cool when she's supposed to be showing up before Discovery to set the signals. That's the whole, and then she's gone. At least it looks like she just immediately gets zipped away. Actually, it shows in this version of what we see, it shows her looking onto the events, but I took that metaphorically. Like she's remembering the events as they happen, but then it shows her like actually in the suit. And I was like, why? Why is she in the suit there? I don't know.
I think there were just certain events where she did intervene because she remembered how it happened.
Right. It's just, she doesn't seem to have any agency while flying the suit yet. I don't see how she intervened. I don't know. She didn't even know she was going to do it. Like she had no plan. Like you were talking about sensor readings and if she had planned all that, sure. Yeah. Have the suit set to send out a signal to save the Kelpians and have, your suit, plan to save Burnham or whatever, previous self or whatever. But like, she didn't even know she was going. She just said to set the signals, which I'm still just completely confused about the signals thing. They're talking about how they still don't know. They know the signals are coming. They know there's 7 signals. They have a map of them, but they don't know where they are. Like, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
I mean, until they do know where they're at.
Right. Until they happen. But if they haven't happened yet, how do they know they even exist? I thought they appeared in the sky. Like, that's the whole thing.
I know. I know, man.
It drives me nuts.
I mean, the show has a lot of time travel issues. I feel like, yeah, why wouldn't it be her mother? But then probably just because her mother already knew that she was the Red Angel saving herself. And wait, what? Like, I guess because she was saved by someone else, her mother didn't say, hey, there she is about to die. Let me go save her. So,
right.
Would her mother have to know that she was the Red Angel at some point?
No. According to her mother didn't know about the signals. She says, what signals? So the mother doesn't even know the signals are happening. Yeah. So it should be two completely separate events. We talked about it a couple episodes. If she doesn't know about the signals, then who's setting the signals? So her mother has been doing all of the other things, and Burnham is just supposed to be dropping in to let Discovery know where to go. That's all we're supposed to see. But because they wanted to make it really a cool scene, they put her in the suit in the events at Kaminar and on that asteroid, and she should not have been there. I'm pissed off about it. I feel like I shouldn't have to be this pissed off.
Okay. I mean, I see your issue. That was not a previous issue I'd had.
You throw something out, whether it's an issue or positive. There are things I liked. I really enjoyed the Queen in this episode. I'm actually really sad she didn't go to the future. Like I had thought was going to happen.
Well, I mean, they did go. They just...
The Queen?
Oh.
No, yeah, I'm talking about the Queen.
Oh, no. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I missed that. I really enjoyed the follow the Queen. I really enjoyed the whole Queen being part of the battle. Poe is fun. I like Poe. Yeah,
she's all right. So, I have this question. Does Leland have to, put people into that rig? Does he have to strap them into the apparatus to put the bots inside of their head?
We don't know.
He's beaming around, and clearly he can inhabit multiple people at once because of Gant. Why can't he just assimilate other crew members? I'm annoyed that he's not more like the Borg, apparently.
He may not be the Borg, but it's annoying that he's not more like them. Yeah, I don't know. We don't have that answer. And it does seem like if he had weeks to plan this, he could have had more crew members and not, or even send more robots, whatever. He goes over there solo and has this huge fight scene with two of the crew members. And it just seems like he could have sent more people. It just, the logic in these episodes is so flawed. They somehow have endless drones and shuttles to fire at each other and let them do the fighting. But then when it means they want a cool fight scene between two crewmen and a robot Terminator, they just throw all that out the window and just send the two, whatever they want for the scene. And I don't know. I just want my science fiction to be a little logical at times, Yeah. Logical or mystical. It just needs to track.
And I want them to pay off things they've set up. Like last week, we saw Tig Notaro. We saw Jet Reno. That's her name on the show.
Yep.
She gets sort of a contact high or whatever, from the crystal.
Yes.
The time crystal, sees the future, really is setting up something with her, seeing the future.
Right. It reminds me of what happened with Saru.
Happened.
It reminds me of what happened with Saru earlier this season. He loses his ganglia, and then they take an episode before they have any effects of that show up. I would have loved a small glimpse of her seeing the future or having some sort of future experience. But yeah, they just completely ignored that. And she was fun this episode. She had two of the quotes that I wrote down are from her because she's fun. But yeah, why not give us a glimpse that she has some sort of effect? Maybe it's because they haven't made the decisions yet on what that means and what they want to do with her next season. Speaking of next season, clearly they're going to do some sort of future episode.
Looks like it, huh?
I'm thinking maybe even, they have new showrunners, took over the show. The biggest complaint about Discovery is that it's a prequel. I have a feeling those showrunners came in and what they're doing is just moving the show out of the way. The only problem with that is now they're setting that so far in the future, that makes Picard now a prequel. Like, instead of just moving it to, like, Picard's
In a
time.
way, yeah.
Yeah. Like, so no matter what they do in the future, it affects what they can do with the Picard series. Mm-hmm. So that's annoying.
Maybe they do that. Or maybe they do, like, 1 to 3 or 4 episodes, and then they come back and they're like, the future is unwritten.
Yeah, maybe. A few other, things about the future. How many people are staying on Discovery?
The bridge crew, it looks like.
Well, see, that's what I thought. I thought it was like the 12 people that stood in that hallway and said, we're staying with you. But then everyone else stayed on the ship too. There's tons of medical personnel. There were tons of incompetent ensigns.
Well, maybe there were a lot of people who decided to stay with Discovery who just, they're like, we can't all fit in this hallway, guys. Right.
Yeah, I think that may be what we're supposed to believe now. But I didn't get that. They should have said the entire crew. 80% of the crew has decided to stay with you. It's not just us or something. Cause I was under the impression that we were going to get a season of, future Discovery helmed by the bridge crew alone. And it was going to be a very different kind of show, but it seems like they're just going to, it reminds me a little bit of the worst things about Voyager. In that, let's go to the future with the skeleton crew, and that sounds kind of cool, but now they're just going to go with the full crew.
Yeah, I personally thought that the vast majority of the crew moved over to the Enterprise, and they may have been working on Discovery, but before everything went down, they went back to Enterprise.
Yeah, I thought that too, but then during the battle sequence, there's tons of medical personnel and tons of, and we know they can't lower the shields to beam. So if we get to a future episode, like season 3 starts, they're in the future and there's only the bridge crew, what did they do with all those medical personnel and engineers and people running around the ship? Mm-hmm. I don't know. It just seems like I hope for the sake of continuity that all those people just also decided to stay. We just never heard about it.
Well, decisions or not, they still have a duty.
Sure. Yeah. No, absolutely. I'm with you. It's just, was that the necessary duty, I guess? And I guess that should have just been said. I mean, they were ready to let Burnham do it by herself. Like that was apparently possible, to let Burnham
to some degree
do it. That's what they said 2 episodes ago.
Yeah, but 2 episodes ago, apparently they didn't realize that she had to send signals.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a bunch of like sloppy stuff. Like, I am enjoying, I shouldn't say enjoying. I am a viewer of this show. I'm a guy who just kind of watches it, and I am noticing all of this stuff. How do you spend like a year in a writer's room and not reflect on these issues?
Because you don't. Like, I feel like this show has a Warner Brothers problem. Maybe not Warner Brothers now, but like the Warner Brothers DC problems. Like, I feel like this show, and there have been reports, like, suddenly the budget is way too high. Suddenly they've got to rewrite stuff. You've got, and then you've got the people coming in, look, Prime doesn't sell, so you've got to change this. Or not Prime doesn't sell, but, anything alternate doesn't sell. Prime is the only thing that sells, so you have to change the designs here. We got to sync this up with Canon. And you've got to change this and this and this. And I think they're constantly scrambling. Like, there is a reason there's another showrunner.
Yeah, if they had decided to do a whole nother universe or new timeline and just committed to it and not told us that it was the original timeline, they could have built a whole new audience for the show. But they told us it was the original timeline, and they're sticking with that, it looks like. And it's just like, it's just stupid. It's just stupid. Like, it reminds me of Battlestar Galactica. That show found a huge audience, and it was not in the same canon as the original Battlestar Galactica, People were just like, oh, a new Star Trek series. And this all also finds its roots in the fact that they decided to put this out on CBS All Access, and they're just wanting to use the rabid fan base that Star Trek has, and they wanted to capitalize on that, so they set it in the Prime timeline, but they made a bunch of decisions that made no sense with it being the Prime timeline.
Yeah, I don't mind them doing any of that except for lying to us and saying it was the prime timeline.
Well, they're not lying to us. It's still the prime timeline as of now.
No, it's not.
You can say that.
I'm looking at it.
You can say that, but they have set it up, especially with this final episode, and the promise to never mention Discovery, the promise to never mention Burnham. All of these things are them, as Kurtzman said, bringing it in line with canon. You may not think so. You don't like the designs of the ships are different and all this stuff, but no. They're bringing it in line with canon according to them. This is prime timeline according to the writers of the show and according to what they're, like everything they're doing to try to bring it in line with canon, in quotation marks. But they're just ignoring all of the stuff about the designs of the ships because they just thought we wouldn't care. And to be honest, I don't. But you do. A lot of people do. And there are I just don't. The stuff that bothers me is just this internal logic stuff that still makes no sense.
Right.
There's even one line in this episode where maybe it's a lack of understanding on my part about like space battles, but this seems like to make no sense. Pike says, maintain offensive focus, make them come to us. Those are two opposite things. Making someone come to you is a defensive posture. Offensive means you are charging or attacking them. Maintain offensive focus, make them come to us. Okay, maybe he means come to us as in the Enterprise instead of Discovery. Okay, maybe I fixed that one.
I thought they were, because at some point, I don't know when you're talking about in the episode, but I don't know when he says that, but there was a point where he said target the bigger ships. So maybe that's what he meant, was like maintain that offensive focus and let the little ones come to them.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Honestly, when they're saying all that shit, I don't even pay attention. I really don't. It's just a bunch of jargon to me, a bunch of techno-babble. I don't care about it.
And that's the problem. This whole fight sequence, no matter how beautiful it looks and how much they spent on the CGI, like, very few moments in this matter to me at all. Like, there are very few moments where I feel anything for any characters. And that is a problem. That's the problem. It's the problem with the writing and the scripting of the episode. They didn't build, I would have rather seen this Leland episode be more like a Terminator thing where it's one guy stalking through the ship, and one person running from them. But they instead set it in the middle of a space battle.
To be fair, I've seen a lot of people who were moved by the character moments in this episode. I submit that possibly you were so aggravated with the other inconsistencies within the writing of the show that you just don't feel anything for the characters at this point.
That's fair. And it's not like I don't feel anything for the characters in general. I really do like some of these characters.
Or the aggravation is just clouding your feelings.
That is fair, and I fully submit to that logic that it may be my own beef with so many things. It's just really hard for me to focus on the things that matter, which I understand the things that matter are the character moments. Like, I feel the same way. Like, I want the things that matter to be the character moments. But if you're gonna make a science fiction show and you're setting it in a fantastical universe where all this stuff is possible, you have to ground those things in rules or the character stuff can't hit for me. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's enough of that. Another idea, future idea. Do you think they're going to the future? 950 years? Is that what she said?
I think it was 930 years.
That's right. Do you think the Kelpians will be villains in the future?
Probably.
I think they will.
Or maybe, what I think would be stronger is if it turns out that the Kelpians don't exist anymore because their evolution caused them to become, so Klingon-like that they wound up getting into a war they were unprepared for and died out.
I think that it would be really strong if we get, after 950 more years of evolution on that planet, Maybe they don't really go intergalactic like humans have. Maybe they stay mostly on that planet. And they just enslave the Ba'ul. And Saru has to go forward in the future and free the Ba'ul.
I think that's probably closer to what will happen.
You know, although all of this, I have to say, doesn't make a lot of sense for the prime timeline. I feel like we would have heard of the Kelpians and the Ba'ul if they become any kind of major players. Maybe they don't. Maybe they just stay on their planet. Maybe they're pretty isolationist. I don't know where they are in relation to Earth, but I mean close enough that they've already discovered that area and know well about Kaminar.
You know, I would not put it past this show to have built up that entire storyline about the Kelpians evolving just so they can have them show up with the Klingons and help them fight.
Right.
Which was stupid, which I hated because it made no sense.
Why did it make no sense?
Like,
I actually enjoyed that.
Like, at what point, like, when did they, like, because we've got the Klingon ship, which is cloaked, apparently. Why were, like, how did they know to even meet up with them?
Ash Tyler. Ash Tyler left 2 episodes ago and said, I need to go find some people to help us or something like that. He says he's got some things to do. And he goes off and grabs the Kaminar people and the Klingons, which now whether the timing of all makes sense, I don't know, but that's, I think, what we're supposed to believe.
That was just real iffy, real weird for me.
Him bringing the Klingons made sense to me. Him bringing the Kaminar and the Klingons seemed a little weird.
Him bringing the Klingons definitely didn't make sense to me because, again, why are the Klingons not wondering why Ash Tyler is alive? Why have they not dethroned L'Rell?
That's a good point.
He is supposed to be dead.
That's a good point. I have to assume that the only people who know, which this is, you know, again, this is headcanon. I'm with you. That doesn't make sense. You're right. The truth is, it's probably just because they changed showrunners since they made those decisions about him having to be a secret. But the truth, what I have to say in my head, canon, is that everyone on that bridge is very loyal to L'Rell. Like, that's her throne ship or something, and only the key people are especially on the bridge, are her trusted advisors or something. I really enjoyed seeing Ash Tyler freak out in Klingon, though.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
That was fun.
But yeah, I'm with you. That makes no sense. I didn't think about that he shouldn't be alive according to Klingon rules.
Yeah. And, you know, here's a question. They stopped Leland before they went to the future. Why didn't they say, hey, we don't have to go now?
Well, they just don't know for sure, basically. It's a good point. Like, it's kind of overkill to kill Leland, honestly. They thought they wiped out, Control a few episodes ago. So the fact that Control, but then you also get into the question of how does Control exist at all? I thought the whole point was that it came back from the future because it became sentient because of the sphere data, and it can never become sentient, but it wasn't sentient inside of Leland, or was it? I don't know what sentience means in this case.
The way they stopped Leland, though, was the same way they stopped Leland a few episodes ago, and the whole point of moving Discovery to the future was so that Control couldn't get to it, but Control is on Discovery.
Well, yeah. Well, I guess you would say Control is in other ships out there in the, I think Leland was the only representation of Control on Discovery. At least as we know now. Man, this episode is rife with problems.
Yeah, I just don't understand why they're taking it, like, couldn't Control still take over Discovery and kill all sentient life in the future?
Yeah, I guess it could.
The whole point of taking Discovery to the future was to get away from Control. Right now, he's just the Control is just magnetically, you know, stuck to the hull inside of that spore drive encasing.
Yeah, that's not a very. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you. If they don't address that next season, it will be very silly.
I'm just confused, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's.
And ultimately, there was really no depth to Control either. Like, this is a shitty villain.
Yeah,
like,
pretty mustache twirly.
He's just Ultron. Or any number of other, bad guy computers.
I mean, yeah.
From previous Star Treks even.
Yeah. And I'm not hating too bad on that. I like a good bad guy computer. It's kind of a fun villain, but to base a whole season around it and to not have any other depth to the other character movements with any villain, at least. It was all just a bunch of people fighting against this one thing. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, Section 31 in general was kind of a villain. Once Leland is taken over by Control, it just becomes one, and then you just have Leland, I guess the baggage of Leland, like, the whole Georgiou thing where Georgiou is really wanting to hurt Leland felt really weird once he was Control.
It did.
It's like, why do you care? That's not Leland anymore. Don't you get that? Are you not savvy? I don't know. And I'm just not on board. I felt like we were supposed to enjoy her enjoyment of his pain as Control was being like destroyed and magnetized or whatever.
Yeah.
And like, she's like laughing and enjoying watching Leland in pain. And I'm more with Saru where he's like, you're gonna see a human face, but you have to understand it's not a human. Like, that's where I'm coming from. Like, I don't want to watch this human face be melted away. Like, it's disturbing. And it just further proves her villainy. When she does that, I don't enjoy it.
Yeah, it was a little weird. And it made me like, Nan less. I didn't like her. Because, I mean, her line was stupid anyway.
What was her line?
When Georgiou says, after we are done with this, would you like to join me in making Leland scream? And Nan's response is, yum, yum.
Yeah, that was stupid. That's, ugh.
Like, ugh.
I could even see like I'm in or something like that. Like I could see an acknowledgement, but yum yum, it just feels villainous to me. Like pain is not, I don't know. And now we're getting into the whole like, it's fine. I think it's fine that these people are imperfect, but I still don't want to love their imperfections. Like, it's one thing to make Star Trek more like reality where there are more people with flaws and even people with villainous intent and such. But like, the show seems to be making a case for us enjoying their villainy and not even treating it as villainy, just enjoying her enjoyment of his pain. And I'm not on board for that.
I mean, if they're setting up, I can kind of get it if they're setting up, Nan maybe joining Section 31 with Georgiou at some point, like, because, she was the one that threw Arium out the airlock. Like, she made the tough decision.
Oh yeah,
like,
for sure.
There's been a few
isn't she on
issues.
Discovery?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, so she's not.
So is Georgiou.
Yeah, no, they're all on Discovery. Like, they're not.
That's how we know they're coming back.
Maybe. Do we? Do we have any idea that they're coming back?
Well, look, we know that that the crew abandons Discovery in the future, and Discovery doesn't have a crew. So the way they get around it is the crew winds up going back home, and the Discovery stays in the future.
Yeah, but we don't know that's happening for like another 4 seasons or something. It could happen later.
Well, the only reason we do know is because the Section 31 series, and we know that Michelle Yeoh is supposed to be in like the star of that show.
I guess I didn't know that for sure. Have we heard anything about that since this episode? I'm curious.
I mean, I haven't kept up with that.
I'm curious if that could have been a lie. I don't know. I'm coming from the MCU cast where over on there we're used to them just lying to us all the time about things that are announced and shows.
I get you. I get you. We have a Mark Guggenheim. I
much prefer when people lie to us. I'm down with people lying to us. Not so much about it being in the prime timeline. I'm not down with that if that's a lie, because that's just, as I've said, it's using the fan base instead of making something for the fan base.
Yeah.
Another positive, that gravity fight scene was amazing.
It was. I did write that down as a good thing.
That was great. Really cool. The time travel effect that they used when they're going through the wormhole, that reminded me of some other time travel effect. Was it a Star Trek thing? I'm trying to remember. I looked up a few time travel effects on other Star Trek things. When the way the light is shifting and sort of stretching from their faces.
Yeah, that looked like It looked like they were specifically doing Star Trek 4.
See, I thought that too, and I went and looked, and it looks nothing like Star Trek 4.
Oh, no. You know what it is?
What?
You know what it is? It is Star Trek the motion picture when they get caught in that wormhole, the meteor.
Okay. I don't remember, but
There's like an asteroid or something in the middle of, because Kirk tells them to, go to warp without any prep or something, and they're like, that's what we were trying to tell you. That's what caused the wormhole, the antimatter imbalance, because you can't do this. And the whole point was that Decker knew the ship better than Kirk. But, because Kirk had been away.
Right.
But, and Decker, oversaw the refit. Whatever. Decker.
Yeah, so, I couldn't remember what that was from, but I thought it was Star Trek, and I just didn't remember what. But yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
That's what it looked like. Yeah.
This is not a big complaint. It's a minor one, and more of a question than a complaint. It's a Is her name number 1?
No.
Cause she's in an official interrogation. They still state her name and she says number 1, which I understand is a nod to the fact that we don't know her name from the original series and all that stuff from the pilot. But is it just a joke, or are they actually telling us that her name is number 1?
I am going to look this up, but I already know the answer because he does call her by her name in the episode.
Oh, he does. You're right.
Pike does. That. He calls her Una, and that is from books. That is her name. They've had several different names for her. In the New Frontier books, I think her name was Leffler. She was like Robin Leffler's grandmother or something. But I think the first book she was in, her name was Una, and it was a name she gave herself basically because her name, she's from a different planet and her name is, unpronounceable. So Una means like the first one or number 1. I'm looking it up.
Oh yeah. Like Uno.
It was like it was supposed to be she's the first in her class type of situation.
Okay.
It was a nickname that she was given, and that's what she calls herself. Something like that. But there are a few different versions of it because it's all in the books, so.
Right. It's the first time I've had it canon.
Right.
Okay. When the Admiral looks at Pike and says, "This is not where your story ends, and I think you know that." How does she know that? That seemed oddly insightful.
Who is he talking to again?
The Admiral. The Admiral before she dies, he's offering to stay with the bomb, the missile, and she says, "Captain, this isn't where your story ends. I think you know that." And then he looks thoughtful about it and she's right. But the only time someone asked him about that, he said, this is only for me. That experience is only for me. So she doesn't know that he knows about his future, paralyzation or whatever.
Well, we don't, I'm assuming she read a report or talked to him. She knows Pike well enough, to know that he had they know about the time crystal. I'm assuming she knows that he had some encounter with that time crystal and knows something.
Maybe. Do we know about the time crystal? Do they? It seems like they don't. It seems like that's a new...
I would think she would. She's the Admiral. She's the top ranking there.
Maybe, but it seemed like it was very new information to Pike when they sent him to get one, that he was going to see a vision of his horrific future. Well,
yeah, new vision. Okay.
Also,
I'm assuming that he came back and said, "I had to do this," and then what'd you see? That's for me. Okay, fair enough.
But how does she know, even then, how does she know that the thing he saw wasn't him closing the door on a missile and exploding?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
That could have easily been his time crystal vision. She doesn't know that. I'm just
saying, if frickin' Michael Burnham and Tig Notaro know that if you touch the crystal, you get a vision of your future, I'm assuming Admiral Cornwell knows.
Right. Maybe. Even so, it just seemed weirdly insightful and too much information that she shouldn't know.
My issue with that scene, and it's the same issue that our buddy Jason Smith, who I mentioned earlier, had, how is that door keeping him from blowing up? Like, and then when you see the ship and how much it blew out of that ship.
Absolutely.
It was exactly where he was standing. Like, what the hell?
Also, if the closing the blast doors was the backup plan the whole time, why didn't they have one of those little droids that flew around the ship fixing things earlier come down in there and pull the lever, have the droid pull the lever?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, why didn't they have that as a contingency plan? As soon as they're in there and they're like, oh, we need to pull this lever, this will be our backup plan. If we can't deactivate it, we'll pull this lever. But that'll mean someone will die. Why don't we plan for that? Yep. Why don't you plan for anything? So pissed off. I don't get pissed off easily. And the more and more I talk about this show, the more and more I dig into it, the more and more it makes me mad. I just can't enjoy it because it makes me so mad that there's so many logical inconsistencies. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry, man. This is, these are fair nitpicks, I think.
I think so too, and I hate that they are. I really do, because I want to like it so much.
Look, it's the thing is like when we were watching the first season, we were like, people are being unfair about this show. This show's pretty good. You know? That's going to piss off some people. Guess what? This is going to piss off some people because they're like, it's finally acting like Star Trek. I'm like, yeah, except it's shit.
Yeah.
Not completely.
No, not completely. It's got major bright spots.
Like, I will tell you this, since the first showrunners got shit canned, and the last, like, I have seen a drastic decrease in quality in the actual crafting of the show. Like, since whatever that episode was, the last half of the season, like, the internal logic of the show doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And that's like my biggest problem with any show is when the internal logic doesn't make sense. I like have a really hard time caring about anything because I don't trust the writers that the next thing that happens is going to make any sense. So it can't pay off for me emotionally if it doesn't make any freaking sense. I feel like such a nerd right now for caring this much. I don't want to care.
What does it matter? We're doing a Star Trek podcast. The nerd card has been played, my friend.
No, I know. I can just imagine listening to some of these complaints if I didn't have a problem with them. You know, it's like, I don't know. I listen to podcasts all the time, and when people get really nitpicky about a show I like, which I'm assuming people listening to the show probably like the show to some degree, and maybe not. Maybe that's, we have a small audience, and maybe it's just people who like the punishment of hearing people talk bad about the show, but like,
well, I don't want to dislike the show, but, you know, I feel like our audience should be a very niche audience, and that audience is probably people who want to like Discovery but still have problems with it. Because, you know, if you just unabashedly love the show, you're not going to want to hear us. And if you unabashedly hate the show, we like the show too much.
That's true. That's fair. So, for that small sliver that's still with us, thanks for hanging out.
Thanks, Mom.
Your mom listens? That's amazing.
She doesn't even have access to CBS All Access.
But she still listens to the podcast. That's really sweet.
I'm just kidding. I don't think she knows what a podcast is.
Yeah, my mom definitely does not know what a podcast is. She's tried to get me to get for her on the Roku, but I don't think there's a way to get Roku podcasts on Roku. Mm-hmm. Well, let's move on to some quotes. Let's do some quotes. What you got?
All right. One of my favorite quotes, when Saru tells Dr. Polar to do her best, she says, "No, I'm going to do a half-assed job because now's the perfect time." Yeah,
that was...
I liked it.
I was very sassy for that moment. One of my favorites was, I'm going, get off my ass, sir. Get off my ass, sir."
Yep, I loved that.
From Jet. That was really great.
Yep. I hated the Leland scream yum yum line.
It's real bad.
I did write it down because I hated it so much. But then I felt like that the same two people a little bit redeemed themselves with the Leland, you look well for a couple of batteries and data cores stuffed in a meat sack, kind of like an AI sausage. Ew.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I can absolutely see them like working on them as a pilot for moving forward with the Section 31 show.
Oh yeah, Leland and Nod are totally like they're building them up for something.
You
They're
think
not Leland and
Leland?
Nod, not Leland and Nod. Sorry, Giorgio and Nod.
Yeah, I think you're right. I really liked, it's a classic Star Trek reference here. I really liked, can you cut that in half? And, talking about the time it's going to take Jet to finish her work. And she says, violate the laws of physics? No. It's just classic, like Scotty used to say. There's that, I forget which movie it's in, but the joke that Scotty always, pumps up the amount of time something's going to take.
I believe that was, oh gosh, I can't remember what came first. The episode Relics of TNG or, I can't remember the movie now. That's sad. But there is a movie where Kirk finally grows wise to it and says, Mr. Scott, do you always multiply your times by a factor of 4? It's like, of course, sir. How else can I maintain my reputation as a miracle worker?
Yeah, that's great.
The quote is there. I just don't remember which one
it's a movie. It's not Relics because Kirk's not in Relics, I don't believe.
I want to say Star Trek 5, but
that sounds about right. 5 or 6, somewhere in there.
You're asking me to take a leap of faith. One that is logical.
One that is only logical. I liked that one a lot. Yeah. And they're trying to resolve two things in Spock and in the show. Faith and logic, but also like emotions and logic. And I feel like sort of in that moment they got a little muddled. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like the show has been asking the faith versus logic question with all the stuff with this future stuff with the Red Angel. And then they've been asking him whether he's going to be emotional or logical. And in that moment, I was like, that's not really, to me, Spock's. I guess having faith in something was what drove him crazy. So him having that payoff moment, I did like it, but I was a little, I don't know, I lost the thread a little bit. But yeah, I think they were having him pay off. He went crazy because he couldn't resolve the idea that something was acting upon him, this angel drove him crazy because it's acting in a way that he can't understand because it requires faith of some kind. It's not logical to him. And now that he's seeing it from the other side, he's able to have faith, but only faith, a leap of faith, but only one that is logical. But that still kind of then begs the case of like, is
it faith?
Is it faith at all? If it's just, you are now seeing it from the other side. It's not faith anymore. Mm-hmm. So is it a leap of faith? I mean, you're taking a leap of faith in that you're going forward and you don't know the outcome. And I guess that's a leap of faith. I guess that is technically a leap of faith, but it's not really in the same way that the Red Angel, trusting in the Red Angel in the beginning of the series would have been.
Right.
I liked the line, your algorithm was most easy to predict. It was one of the few moments that Control had a little personality, and I kind of liked that. I liked the little glimpse of Control there. Control taking pleasure in predicting the human algorithm of Giorgio. And it was wrong. I liked it. It had too much hubris, which is what brought it down right in that moment.
Yeah.
Thought that was kind of a cool line. You got any more?
I thought I could make my home Enterprise, then I realized you're my home.
No, yeah. That was sweet.
It was obvious. It was really obvious to me. I knew he was going to say it.
Yeah, I actually thought what was going to happen. As soon as I saw Stamets get injured, and here's some credit to the writers. The rare bit of credit to the writers. When I saw Stamets get injured, I was like, oh, he is going to have to beam over to save him because he's the most talented surgeon or something like that. Like, they were going to have to do something with Hugh having to stay because of Stamets getting injured. But I liked it a lot more that he was just there because that sets us up for them to have a different kind of relationship in the future where Hugh makes the decision to stay and isn't just staying out of some sort of like duty to save Stamets' life, but he's staying because he chose to stay before that.
Yeah, I expected them to do exactly what they did, and I was hoping they would go the Joss Whedon route and kill Stamets.
Oh gosh. Yeah, there was a moment I thought that I thought that maybe Hugh would try to stay, and then we'd end up next season without a Stamets, but with a Hugh, because Hugh tries to stay, but he dies anyway, and then Hugh ends up trapped in the future.
Yeah.
Because he tried to save his ex-lover who ended up dying anyway. Like, that's real tragic.
But, I knew they weren't going to do that because of how much flack they caught last season for supposedly, killing our gays.
Yeah.
That's a trope.
Oh, I know. I know.
Yeah.
I know it was an issue for a lot of people last season. Come on, guys. Gays can die too.
I think the problem is they usually do.
No, I know. I get it. I totally get it. I just think it's funny. I think it's funny to fight for the right to die in media.
See, how did you feel about Michael Burnham saying, find that person who seems farthest from you and let them guide you?
I liked it.
Clearly talking about Kirk.
Sure. Clearly talking about Kirk, maybe even McCoy, and the way he relates to them going forward. Because it's easily, if he was choosing to be the logical person if he's choosing to take the path of Sarek instead of the path of Amanda, he could easily have changed ships later when he realized that Kirk and McCoy are so impetuous. But he doesn't. He stays there because, it brings that side of him out and someone else becomes his balance going forward because Burnham has to leave. I enjoyed that. I thought that the whole Spock arc was nice and it brought new depth to the character of Spock and gave him sort of a reason for sticking around, on the Enterprise and wanting to be with Kirk and McCoy. I liked it.
I really liked him telling her he loved her in Vulcan and her saying, I love you too, brother. That was nice.
I liked that a lot too. I was wondering what the words meant in Vulcan. Were they just I love you? Or
I suppose. I don't know.
Is love considered an emotion?
Yes, but they're not devoid of emotion.
Sure.
You'll recall Sarek, telling Spock in the 2009 Star Trek movie, I told you that I married your mother because it was logical. The truth is I loved her.
Right. I'm not saying that Vulcans can't love. I'm genuinely asking the question. Like, I genuinely asking, is there something to, the fact that, I don't know. What would the word be? Would it mean, I'm honestly interested in their culture. What would the word I love you mean? Like, would it be an analogy of some sort? Would it be like, I don't know. What would the literal interpretation be? Is it just I love you? Is love the emotion something that they would say readily? I don't know. I'm interested. I'm not shitting on it. I
don't know.
I know you got defensive about it. I'm like, no, don't get me wrong.
I'm not getting defensive.
Well, I don't mean defensive in like a negative way. I mean, you literally were defending it, I think, that he said that. And I agree with you. I liked it. I just am curious about what the Vulcan words for I love you would mean. Or how they would literally interpret that. Or if they just have a word for love. Maybe they do. But I could see it being sort of taboo in their culture since they try to stay away from their emotions and passions.
Yeah. I'll tell you what was forced.
I just really enjoyed that. I'll tell you what was forced.
Pike said goodbye, my friends, my family.
Yes.
Family?
Yes, absolutely. That was forced as hell.
Well, you've been there like a week, man.
I'm surprised I didn't write that down because it really bothered me. Because friends is enough. Friends is enough.
It is.
You don't have to be family. What El Diablo? Sorry. From Suicide Squad. I don't know. That was my least favorite part of Suicide Squad is when he called them all family.
Yeah, that was bad.
It's so bad. Ugh. There's a lot of things you can say there. That's not one of them that makes any sense.
Yeah. It may have in the Ayer cut, # release the Ayer cut. But I don't know about this. Sorry. Back to Star Trek. That reminded me of that El Diablo moment. Yeah. I mean, I had push that so far out of my head.
All right. Any trivia?
Spock quotes Regulation 157, Section 3, about officers required to take all necessary precautions to minimize any participation in historical events. That comes straight from Deep Space Nine, Trials and Tribulations.
Neat.
Yeah, that's all I've got on trivia.
Okay, great.
How do you feel about, like Spock suggested they make Discovery and all that stuff classified.
Right.
How do you feel about that? Like, do you think that actually does adequately fix the timeline for real?
In most ways, except for stylistically, yes.
Okay. I
can't think of anything other than styles, which I know is a much bigger problem for you than it is for me. I don't disrespect that. I think other than styles, I can't think of anything that's drastically wrong with the timeline. Mm-hmm. I mean, the spore drive's gone. And honestly, they even fixed things that I didn't really feel like they needed to fix. Like they made it so that, Sarek will never speak Burnham's name. Like, that's his daughter. Like, we don't see Sarek enough times for it to have mattered that we never heard him say Burnham's name.
Yeah.
My problem wasn't that they didn't fix the timeline. It was that they, kind of overcorrected.
A little bit, yeah. I think last week I was on Discovery After Show. Mm-hmm. And, one of my friends on there, Scott Madison, he's been a longtime listener of DC On Screen, and we've done some episodes together. I've been on a couple of his shows, but he was, talking about how it's all aesthetics, and you could just update it like you would, just like the aesthetic part of the original series didn't happen. And I asked him, what about something like Relics, where actually, I think I left out Relics, but that's a good point too. You have something like Relics where Scotty shows up on the Enterprise D and asks to see the bridge of his old ship, and it's pristinely from the 60s. What about Trials and Tribulations, where they literally go back in time? They're in the background of Star Trek episodes. And what about Enterprise, where we see people from the mirror universe in the past aboard the USS Defiant, clearly looking like a classic 1960s Constitution class starship, which I always felt like they just, it was a style issue. It's like, yes, they moved back towards a more analog style, maybe they did so because of a threat. I even thought briefly that they might be doing it for Leland, let's make this less technological so Leland can't quite assimilate it or something.
Right.
And then I was like, they're not going to do that.
No, and they really did try to bring the new Enterprise, that they showed the bridge and everything looks, mostly just like an updated version. Like they've even got a lot of the similar squiggles and stuff going on in the background. I really don't care if you change aesthetics when it comes to things just being able to look better because as much as I want Star Trek to make internal sense, I also kind of want it to make sense that it could exist, and going back to old school tube TV looking Pong games instead of iPads, does seem like a step backwards. So that's the balance they're trying to set, I think.
Until you walk into a Walmart and you realize they're selling, record players and shit. You're telling me Starfleet can't be, designed by hipsters in the future?
Yes, I am telling you that. I am telling you that.
I refuse to believe it.
I'm sure there might be some guy out there who's outfitted his ship to look like the interior of a car or something. I don't know. There may be people that do that, but in the entirety of Starfleet, I highly doubt.
But when you actually have dialogue about it, when you actually have the characters looking around the ship going, well, this is an interesting way to decorate a ship from the future. I don't know. It's a thing that exists in the Star Trek universe. And rather than just say, all of the work of these designers didn't actually happen, seems silly. it would make more sense to me to just not lie to us and say, "Yep, this is an alternate universe."
I mean, I don't think they're lying to you. I think they're just disregarding the thing you don't want them to disregard.
Yeah. I mean, and a thing that no other series has ever disregarded. And in fact has commented on. And, Scott was talking to me about Roddenberry once said, when someone said, why did the Klingons look different in the original series than they do in the movies? He said, well, they always look like they did in the movies. We just didn't have the money for it. Well, Trials and Tribulations, they ask, why did the Klingons look different? Enterprise, they explained why the Klingons look different. It is now canon that that the Klingons look different.
Right.
So, there are several things, and we still don't have a reason why L'Rell and all these people look different. That was a thing that we were told that would be fixed by the end of the season and hasn't been. I
do think they look a lot closer with hair.
They do, but I don't remember Klingons having 4 nostrils before.
Yeah, they didn't, but, they're at least getting closer. Again, I hear you. I do. And I'm sad for you because I hate that they're disregarding the thing that you don't want them to disregard, because they're also disregarding major things that I don't want them to disregard.
Oh, I mean, I don't want them to disregard good storytelling either.
Yeah, I know. You can find it in yourself to just be like, this is a separate universe. And yep, I can't really do that and have the same emotions about it, I guess. For me to care that it's Star Trek means that I care that it's the same universe. I
won't lie. Me putting it into a separate universe makes me care a little less about it. For sure.
Right.
It does. Yeah. I wish it didn't, but it does.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I'm with you. I think, I'm not saying it's not, a problem that they disregard. This all comes to the root of, why are you freaking making a prequel? Stop making prequels. Just stop it. Maybe every once in a while tell a story from that timeline and just use the technology and the ship designs of that time.
Yeah, I agree. And, they have working versions of this thing. I think James Cawley has one. The guy that did, New Voyages / Phase 2.
Yeah.
And, that's a perfect example, because Cawley and his crew, his team, they made episodes of the, new episode, quote unquote, new episodes of the original series.
Yeah.
And it looked perfect. Everything aesthetically looked perfect. And they did update it. It was in HD. They did use current special effects. They still kept a lot of the same dramatic beats, but the pacing was faster. It worked. It was really good.
Right.
It worked really, really well. If the acting had been as good as we have on Discovery, my lord.
Right. I haven't seen those, so I can't really speak to it. But I do think they're trying to update the show. And it's just I think the things they're trying to update are good. I think the kind of storytelling they're doing, the kinds of pacing they're using, the kind of technology, the kind of, special effects they're using, all of that is really cool. And I think it's great. And I'm glad they're doing it. But it's the internal logic of it all. And I mean, that goes for the design as well as the storytelling. They're doing a shitty job of maintaining internal logic about this television show. Where it connects to other things, but also just where it connects to itself. It's insane to me, that this is still, going on. I don't know. It's insane to me, the kinds of mistakes they make in the basic storytelling of this show.
I agree. All right. I need to wrap this up, but real quick, the end of this episode. Now, Anson Mount has said that in order for them to do a Captain Pike series at all, they would have to have some quote unquote creative conversations. But at the end of this episode, you think they're setting up a Pike series?
I sure hope so. And I say that with all the things we just said about stop doing prequels, but the Pike series, that could be the thing we're talking about, where you just tell us, maybe even a mini series or a movie. I feel like ongoing storytelling is tricky in a prequel world. But I could absolutely see them going forward with a Pike series that has a limited scope and is about one thing or one part of his life or one story that they have to tell. And that's the thing, like he said, they've got to have some creative conversations. They've got to decide what story they want to tell for Pike. I don't think that a Pike series is inherently a great idea, but I just enjoy Pike so much.
You know, I've even said it. I've heard some other people say it. You know, they built that Enterprise bridge as its own thing.
Yeah.
If you're asking me at this point, I don't think Captain Pike series is necessarily imminent, but I do think that Discovery is going to use that bridge. The new Discovery is going to be a Constitution class.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, that could be.
Whenever the crew comes back from the future.
Right.
They're going to use some variation of that bridge.
I think that is possible. I also think it's possible to stay in the future a while. I would like to see them stay in the future. I'd like to see the show just get out of the way of canon and do something different. But again, the problem is everything you do that distant future, you're setting rules for the people who are making the Picard show and any other shows set in the current timeline. It's just, they just made mistakes. They've made mistakes, and they're mistakes that are hard to come back from.
Yep.
We'll see what they do with Discovery next season. Well, guys, we'll be back real soon with more Star Trek talk. We'll probably cover some stuff that we really like a lot next week. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Peace.
Live long and prosper.
To reach out to us, hit us up at StarTrekUcast.com, at StarTrekUcast on Twitter, Star Trek Universe Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for us there, or send us a message at StarTrekUcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv. And if you want to hear more from Matthew Carroll, that's me, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, or go listen to my music at MatthewCarrollMusic.com or anywhere you get music.
I will sing to you guys just in case Matt forgets to cut this out. Hello everybody, Matt will forget to cut this out. Maybe he'll forget to cut this out. Maybe.